Hey, good evening, everyone. My name is Dan Whitfield. I am the Democratic candidate running to unseat and replace Senator John Bozeman here in Arkansas. And I am very lucky to be doing an interview with KRTD this evening.
Thanks for coming on, Dan.
Oh, no problem. Thanks for having me.
Of course. So you just recently ran for Congress against the fascists in your state.
One of many.
Yeah. So what made you decide to run again for Senate?
So originally, just being a working class guy trying to run for office and get some change for our state, I wasn't really planning on being in politics any longer than that one campaign. And then after experiencing firsthand the corruption in our state, all the way from, our U.S. Senator Tom Cotton to our Governor Asa Hutchinson to the Secretary of State to the Attorney General, all the way down this long list of elected officials here in Arkansas, I decided that I wasn't going to go down without a fight. And I decided that if I am really going to get the kind of change that we need here in Arkansas, that I can't give up, that I have to run again and do whatever I can to try to bring these positive changes here to Arkansas that we just need the right leadership in order to get.
Let me ask you: if you were in the Senate now, would you be in favor of forcing the vote on the $15 minimum wage issue?
Yes, I do support a $15 an hour livable wage. I'm honestly really surprised that we had 8 Democrats vote against raising our minimum wage. And from 7.25 to 15 an hour, I know it is a fairly large increase, but the problem is that our minimum wage hasn't increased in a decade. We have stagnant wages while we're seeing just wealth inequality balloon to a point that our society we've never seen before. We have ginormous wealth inequality. We have ginormous wealth gains by the richest 1/10 of 1%, while everybody else is just kind of struggling, trying to figure out how they're going to pay their bills, just, working 1 or 2 or 3 jobs just to barely get by. And I do support the $15 an hour minimum wage. Again, I was surprised 8 Democrats voted against it. But then when you look at their net worth, these 8 Democrats' net worth combined is about $50 million. So how can we expect someone who's so out of touch with what it's like to be a working class American to see the impacts that a $15 minimum wage would have on people's lives?
Now, there is a way for them to still get it in the bill. You need either one senator or 6 congressmen to block this bill, and they can renegotiate. Are you in favor of that, or do you think they just need to go forward with the bill now?
It's hard to say because we see similar issues like this all of the time in our legislative sessions where people need relief and they need it right now. And then there's just this one part of a bill that is going to hold that much needed relief back. A good example would be with AOC. AOC campaigned against ICE, about abolishing ICE, defunding ICE, all these different things against ICE. And then in her first year serving in our government, she actually voted to fund ICE and to expand their funding. And a lot of people couldn't understand, why would you campaign, for abolishing ICE and then go and vote to give them money? Well, the reason was because that's when our government was shut down, and we had all these government workers who were furloughed, who had no money, they had no income coming in, and that was just part of the bill to get these workers their money. So there's going to be a lot of bills coming into our Senate that need to be voted on that are going to have very, very specific and important pieces of legislation that need to be passed, with a whole bunch of other stuff that is maybe not as relevant to it, which I think is actually, kind of a little off topic. A really important issue that we have in our Congress right now is that we have bills where you have multiple different things coming into one bill, when I think that our bill should be very focused on a singular objective. That way we don't have to worry about pork, we don't have to worry about Trojan horse amendments and different things like that that are going to get important bills to fail, or getting bills passed that are really going to help, especially my constituents here in Arkansas.
Do you think what is the minimum wage right now in Arkansas?
So the minimum wage in Arkansas is actually $11 an hour. And we will be increasing our minimum wage And the problem is that our increases aren't really going to reach where they need to be until 2025, which is still 4 years from now. And it's
That's the same
just,
problem with the government bill.
yeah, and the problem is honestly $15 isn't even enough because we're seeing inflation, we're seeing the cost of living raised dramatically. And by the time 2025 comes around, we're going to need more than $15 an hour minimum wage. It's going to have to be like 20, 25, which it should be about $24 an hour if our minimum wage had kept up with the cost of living increases over the last several decades. But it's just not enough, not fast enough.
Definitely, you actually have some people changing their opinion. They were, for example, um, in the '90s, there were people who ran for governor who said, "Oh, we shouldn't worry about raising the minimum wage. The federal government will do it eventually." And then, eventually, kind of never happened.
Yeah, if anything, states are way ahead of the federal government, and the federal government really needs to come in and put their foot down and say there's no excuse for living in one of the greatest and wealthiest nations in the history of the world for a single mother to work full time and minimum wage and not be able to afford a two-bedroom apartment in any city in our country. It's just not okay. We have to make sure that people have the ability to chase the American dream, that people have the ability to work full time and also be able to pay for, clothing, food, to fix their cars so they're not driving around with bald tires or cracked windshields, to make sure that people have enough money not to have to worry about stress like, how am I going to afford my mortgage or my rent next month? Because I got sick and missed 3 days and I don't have any PTO. These aren't issues that the wealthiest nation in the history of the world should have to face.
Now, here's another thing. If you're in the Senate, is every single Democratic senator entitled to your endorsement come re-election?
Absolutely not. I honestly, I'm very careful with who I endorse. I gave out a handful of endorsements for this last election, and the endorsements that I gave out, they were all progressive candidates. It doesn't matter if you're a Democrat, a Republican, a Libertarian, a Green Party, an Independent, a Alien Party. I don't really care what party you are, as long as the values that you represent, that you want to bring to our society, are values that I agree with, such as like Medicare for all, taking care of our climate, and ending this um, pay to play mentality in our government where we have allowed our politicians to be bought and paid for by billionaires and special interests. I want progressives in office. I don't care
So
if
to
they're
be
a
clear,
Democrat.
if you're in Congress and let's say your former opponent, Senator Tom Cotton, is up for re-election,
Hmm.
and there's a corporate Democrat running against him, but there's also a Green Party candidate, do you throw your endorsement behind the Green Party candidate who's in favor of Medicare for all? And who will win?
If the Green Party candidate was in favor of Medicare for all and the Democrat was not, I would throw it behind the Green Party member. Like I said, I think that I don't think party policies are going to bring us the change that we need. And I think that this is going to be a really important topic for people to be talking about over the next couple years, because if our Senate continues the way that it is right now, we're going to get slaughtered in the 2022 midterms. It's going to
You
happen.
will you be willing to call out people in your own party if you make it to the Senate? Will you be willing to call out corruption from people within the Democratic Party,
Yeah.
not just the Republican Party?
Absolutely. How I will always call out corruption no matter how unpopular it is, even if my constituents may not like it. The truth is the truth, and sometimes the truth hurts. But the only way that we're going to end that kind of corruption is by calling it out, taking a stand, and making sure that the public knows what's going on. That way we can fight back the one way that we actually can, which is on election day.
Okay. Recently, Elizabeth Warren put forward a wealth tax. Is that something you'd support?
Wealth taxes are really difficult. I mean, I don't want to overly burden people with taxes. I mean, I do consider myself fiscally conservative. I don't think that employees should be taxed 30% of their income just for working. I don't think employers should be taxed 30% of their income just for hiring you to work.
It's
I
a 2% tax. I believe everybody above 50 million. on your 51st millionth dollar, and then it's a 3% tax, I believe, if you're over 100 million
Yeah, for Warren's specific plan.
for
Um,
that specific plan.
and I think that that's fine because all I really want to see is I want to see if you and me and our families we're paying 25 to 30% in taxes. I think that billionaires and like millionaires usually pay their taxes, but it's when you start to get into the several hundreds millions. But the people who are currently paying $0 and evading taxes nearly altogether, I think that they should be paying 25% just like us. That's their part of their contribution to society. And I know I hear people like Bill Gates complain, oh, well, I've paid more taxes than anybody else. I've paid $10 billion in taxes. Well, that's only like 10%, guy. I mean, I thank you so much for paying 10 billion in taxes, but realistically, you should have paid like 25 billion in taxes. So you should be happy with your tax evasion loopholes and just kind of sit quiet in the corner over there while the rest of us spend a third of our income on taxes just so that we can barely get by.
How many corporate donors do you have?
I have zero corporate donors. No, with my campaign when I ran as an independent against Senator Tom Cotton last year in the 2020 election, I actually had 100% of my contributions were from individuals, and 80% of my individual contributions were in quantities less than 200. The other 20% were quantities between 200 and 1,000. And I'm very, very proud to say that my average donation was about $29. So it was as grassroots as it could get. I didn't take money from political parties, PACs, or corporations.
So will you reject any any PACs that form to try to support your campaign?
It's going to be a little bit different running as a Democrat. As an independent, having a grassroots campaign, I showed that it can be done. And it's also really
Or let me put this differently: any corporate PACs.
I won't take money from special interests or corporate PACs. Like, I'm not going to take money from the fossil fuel industry, health, or pharma. Now, if we had like a group of citizens put money together in like a progressive PAC that was going to go through and help,
Yeah, that's different.
yeah, I would do something like that. Absolutely. I just, it's going to be a little bit different running as a Democrat because I'll take political party money, whereas before I would only take donations from, say, Democrats, but not the Democratic Party. And that's just unfortunately until we can have campaign finance reform the way that it has to be.
Okay. Will you take? So, what is your goal when you get into Congress? Do you have a special project? Do you have something that you really want to get passed?
So there are just a couple. Well, there's a million things I want to get done as soon as I get elected. But a few things that we'll talk about fairly quickly here. Where number one, I really want to push Medicare for all because Medicare for all is going to be a game changer for everybody, whether you think you like it or you think you don't like it or not. There's a lot about the whole Medicare for all program that you probably don't know, just like a lot of other people. But as a representative for Arkansas, the second poorest state in our country, I can give you facts, and facts are what's important to me. I work in IT and automation. That's what I do. I deal with numbers. And when you look at the fact that the average household income in Arkansas is $40,000 per year, and that Medicare for all will cost 4% of your income after 29,000, you take 40,000, subtract 29, that leaves you with 11, and 4% of that means the average Arkansan family for their whole household will have to pay $440 a year for medical coverage. No longer paying premiums, deductibles, copays. They'll have vision insurance, they'll have dental, they'll have hearing, medical. It's just, it really will benefit all of the people of Arkansas. And if you make more than 40,000, say if you make around $100,000 a year, then you would take the 100,000 minus 29 is 71, and 4% of 71,000 is about $238 a month, which is, I'm pretty sure, significantly less than what you're paying through your private health insurance right now. And that's one of the main things that I really want to talk about and educate people on is Medicare for all so that they understand what it is, so that they want me to continue pushing it and to get it passed. Another thing I think is really important that I'm not seeing nearly enough of here in our representative republic is I want to bring direct democracy to the Senate. I want to give my constituents an actual voice in the legislative process. And I will accomplish this by allowing Arkansans to submit bills onto a website or by mail. And then you will be able to see the bill submitted, and you can either upvote or downvote them. And once a month, the bill that has the most upvotes with my discretion, I will actually write into a bill and I will submit it to Congress so that Arkansans literally have a direct voice in the legislative process. And
So if somebody proposes, they want uh, federal tax on rakes. I'm just giving a
uh-huh.
random thing.
So if someone
Now, of
like,
course, it's not going to be that.
yeah,
But if that gets like a million up, or 70% of your people say yes on that, then you'll, if you think it's a good idea, you'll bring it up to the floor for a vote.
yes. If it was something, silly like that, I would probably still do it. The only reason, excuse me, the only reason that I would actually not submit a bill that was chosen as the most popular would be if it was, harmful towards somebody, or if it was in bad taste or something like that.
So if someone said, I want to lower the taxes of billionaires by 90%, and somehow that got all the upvotes.
No, something like that, I would submit. If someone said they wanted to lower billionaire taxes by 90% and it got, 700,000 upvotes or something like that, and people really were paying attention to it and excited about it, I would submit that bill. That would be my job as the extension of their voice.
Now, will people be able to come to your office? Like, are you going to do something open door policy or appointments or whatever?
So
And
I've
will they have to
already
come with a check?
Yeah, absolutely. I've actually pledged to hold 12 town halls per year here in Arkansas. So even if I have to spend money out of my own pocket to fly back home to come here and hold a town hall, that's what I'm going to do, because how can you represent your constituency if you don't even listen to them? And on top of my 12 town halls per year, I will also continue doing my weekly live streams. I do a weekly live stream every Saturday night at about 6 p.m. Central, and I talk about what happened for the prior week and what's coming up in the upcoming week. And once I'm elected, I'll continue doing that every Saturday night. I'll talk about our highlights from what we did in the legislative session the previous week and what we're going to be doing upcoming. And I think that the more transparency and information we can give Arkansans and the people in our country, the better outcomes that these legislative votes, the better chance that we'll have the outcomes that we want on these legislative votes.
Now, let's say Bob from Arkansas goes to your office in Washington, D.C. and says, I want to talk to Dan Whitfield. Are you going to talk to Bob?
Yeah, absolutely. There's nobody I won't talk to. I've even had an idea of having like an online calendar where people can sign up in my free time slots to meet for a coffee in the morning, or a bite to eat at lunch or something like that, or maybe even sitting on the side of a lake or a river in the evening and casting a line out and fishing and talking about whatever their concerns are. Just
Reminds me of something that Dianne Feinstein did, except she charged people for it and said you had to get up at 7 in the morning.
Absolutely not.
There you go with Dianne Feinstein, and she was charging everybody.
Oh man, yeah. I mean, again, I mean, the whole point of being a senator, being a congressman, is to listen to your constituents and be an extension of their voice, not to be an extension of the voice of your donors, not to be an extension of the voice of special interests, but to the actual people that live in your state that you're representing.
Do you have any higher aspirations in Senate, or do you think if you win the Senate, is there a next step, or do you not know that now?
Honestly, I'm not planning on being in politics. Like I keep saying, I will run this last election, this cycle of 2022 for U.S. Senate. And if I win my election, then my name will be on the ballot in 2028, but I will not be holding a reelection campaign. If I'm doing a good job, then my constituents will vote for me without me wasting a whole bunch of their money to advertise and to tell everybody how good of a job I'm doing. Now, if I'm not elected in 2022, then I'm not going to run for office again. I'll have already finished my degree and I'll continue my career and focus more on my family, because a lot of people don't understand how hard it is on a candidate's family, because just how much time it entails, the mental stress that it takes on your family and all these different things. This will be my last actual campaigning cycle.
So, what happens if you win and then you just continue to win?
Then I will have done it without campaigning. I will have done it on my merits because I'm doing a good job.
So there's no presidential aspirations or vice presidential.
I have no aspirations for that. I mean, there are a lot of things I would like to see done differently in our country. I I would love to be the president and have the opportunity to do some things like ending child. 1/4 of the children in Arkansas live in poverty and are food insecure, which is just ridiculous when you think that there are 3 men in our country that pay little to no taxes that have more wealth than 50% of the people in our country. I would do everything I could to start changing our country so that we no longer judge how great we are by the wealth and economic gains of the richest 1%, but how I want us to judge ourselves by how well we take care of the most vulnerable and how happy the regular people in our society and the working class are.
Definitely. Now, how do you feel about Mitch McConnell leaving the Senate?
Ah, what a great day that day was. I mean, he pretty much single-handedly was the Senate. I mean, if you think of Senator Palpatine from Star Wars,
Yes, I
he
am the Senate.
he was the Senate. He had the ultimate authority on, if we had 435 congressmen vote on a bill and it passes and goes up to the Senate, one man had the authority to say, nope, we're not even going to vote on it. Never ever happened.
Now
And
he wants to pick his successor.
oh man,
He's working with the state legislature in Kentucky to change the law so the governor does not pick a successor and he does, and his top donor's wife is on the list.
yes, I mean that's all just corruption. And the problem with a lot of these issues are, you know, what they're doing is wrong, and there are ethical consequences for it. But the problem is the people that are on these state ethics committees are assigned by these same people. That's why there are no consequences. There's no, there's just it's really too bad. I mean, I see it a lot here in Arkansas, where a good example would be our Attorney General, Leslie Rutledge. She is about as unethical as it gets, to the point where she spent it was either 1.6 or 1.7 million tax dollars on campaign advertisements for her gubernatorial race. And now she's being sued for spending that tax money, and basically everything's just going to get, just, oh, bad, slap on the wrist, nothing's going to happen, it's going to get washed away, because the Arkansas Ethics Committee was appointed by, one of them was appointed by her, one of them was appointed by the governor, one by the Senate Majority Leader. The GOP has appointed all these people, so as long as you're part of the GOP, you can pretty much get away with any crime that you want.
Definitely true. Now, um, is there any bill that in your first year, if you win the Senate, in the first year of the Senate, is there a bill you have in mind to bring up, or have you been working on something, or you're not sure?
Yes. So there are some really important bills that we do need submitted to our Congress that have actually not been submitted before. And these bills are going to be ones that are specific for Arkansans. And a good example would be renters' rights. So
Okay.
Arkansas is the only state that doesn't have renters' rights. Arkansas is the only state where if you don't pay your rent, you can go to jail. So a great example would be a couple weeks ago when we were having sub-zero temperatures for a week straight. Uh, if you were a tenant in a building and that building had no heat, your landlord has no legal responsibility to fix the heat. They don't. Now, so you decide, well, it's been 20 degrees in my apartment for the last week and a half. I'm not going to pay my rent on the first. You don't pay your rent, and now you're going to jail. So these are problems that we're facing here in Arkansas. We have a lot of out-of-state donors or investors come in and purchase apartment complexes and leave them basically as these big slum locations. They're slumlords. They have rats, mold, roaches, and there's no accountability. They don't have to fix anything. And there's all sorts of groups, activist groups here in Arkansas who have documented these issues. And there's just no accountability. There's no responsibility. So I think one of the first things that I would do as a representative for Arkansas was I would submit federal legislation that wouldn't change much for the other 49 states, but it would bring our state up to par with them.
Would it be like a standard though? So it would be a standard. So but you might also be making things better for other states in the process.
Yeah, I mean, anything like that would be better for any state that doesn't have the level of protections for tenants that they should have. But most states at
Right.
least have some, and Arkansas has none.
That's ridiculous.
It is.
So if let's say I'm Leon Cooperman, for example, I can go into Arkansas and I can go to Third Avenue and buy an apartment complex, and I don't have to do anything, and everybody has to pay rent.
Of course, you would pay an inspector, and an inspector would come. But depending on who that inspector is,
So
maybe
I get my buddy to inspect.
yes, and maybe that inspector does your inspection, and now next week he's in Cancun on a cruise paid for. Who knows, kind of thing. And like I said, there's just no accountability. But yeah, you would be okay as long as you passed your inspection. You could charge your rent, and then if people don't want to pay your rent, you could evict them, or you could have them, you know, theoretically put in jail until they do pay you.
That should definitely be changed.
Yeah.
Anything else? You said there were a couple.
Um, well, I mean, that's one of the big ones. Another big issue is uh, right now our schools only get about 10% of their funding from federal funding, and I want to increase that. I want to reallocate some of the wasteful spending that we are already spending in our taxes to go towards education, because here in Arkansas we have several communities, several counties that have average household incomes of less than $25,000. And when you have these communities with such low incomes, that leaves very little money for the community schools. So I really want to raise the amount of federal funding that we are giving to our schools. And something that I would like to see done at the state level is I would like to see our educational funding pooled together and then distributed for staff and student rather than just by having local property taxes pay for schools. Because we have this really big issue in Arkansas where we have some of the most highly qualified, highest paid educators and some top of the line schools. And then at the same time, we have really just underpaid educators and schools who are just falling apart. And the amount of educational diversity that's out there is just, it's not fair to our children. And I would like to see something like that changed here at the state level, if not even at the federal level.
Well, the federal level would help because that actually might be a better system where everything is put into a pool and then everybody gets what they need to run the school
Hmm.
properly.
Yeah, I think that would help a
So,
lot because I think education is going to be one of the most important aspects of our society that we really need to reinforce and reinvent, because our educational system should be, I mean, set straight towards teaching our children the skills that they need to succeed in life and their careers. Where I feel like a lot of our schools nowadays are just kind of put there as babysitters, uh, just so that the parents can go to work. And I don't think that that's what education and schooling should be.
now, my next question is going to be regarding Tom Cotton. Your co-senator for that state is going to be Tom Cotton. If you win, do you have any plans to endorse a challenger to Tom Cotton's left?
If the challenger to Tom Cotton supported progressive values like Medicare for all, federal decriminalization of cannabis, nationally expunging cannabis convictions, and supporting our changing climate, then I would endorse that candidate. Yeah.
Now, now everybody knows in the country Tom Cotton's bad. Tom Cotton's gearing up to run for president. Everybody knows that. Why don't you tell us a little bit about John Bozeman?
So John Bozeman, he's a lot less known. He's really, really good at flying under the radar. A lot of people don't even know who he is, and you can look up popularity research projects that have been done online. And if you look at if you look at the list of most popular versus the least popular senators, I found it very interesting that Senator John Bozeman was actually, he had the highest margin for don't know. So he's not the most unpopular. He's not the most popular. He is the most I don't know, because a lot of people don't know who he is or what he's done. I believe he's only actually sponsored and submitted 4 bills that have passed in his 16 years in Congress. And 4 bills is just not enough. If you break it down, basically he's charging Arkansans taxpayers about $500,000 a bill to submit. Um, and then a good way to judge kind of who he is just Google how he votes. If you go to votesmart.org, then you can enter in his name and you can see his entire career voting history. And if you start to do, the research and put different votes together, you'll see that he's actually voted alongside the lines with Tom Cotton 99% of the time in the last few years. He's actually
Right.
voted along the lines with Ted Cruz, Marco Rubio, Mitch McConnell, Josh Hawley. All of these GOP senators are voting the exact same way. So just because you may not know his name or know who he is, it does not make him any less legislatively dangerous to our society. It's just nice that he doesn't go around shouting things like slavery was a necessary evil and no quarter and things like that.
Wait, you're not giving him credit here. 1% of the time he doesn't vote with Tom Cotton. You're not giving him credit here.
1% of the time, yes. Oh
Good
man.
job on that 1%.
uh, but we need real fundamental change, and we're not going to get fundamental change from these career politicians who have shown that they're not interested in fundamental change. They're interested in nothing will fundamentally change in keeping the status quo.
Have you received any endorsements for your campaign yet?
It's really early in a campaign to start getting endorsements, especially running as a party candidate. Most candidates aren't going to get endorsements before a primary, especially because if they have another party candidate come up, they don't really want to side rail in. Man, I'm sorry, my hair is getting so long, it's bad. I need a haircut. I'm waiting to get my vaccine so I can go out and get one.
Hmm.
But I have not gotten any endorsements at this time. We haven't really been seeking any endorsements. A lot of people are still saying it's too early to announce and to run and to start a campaign, especially after this crazy election we just had a few months ago. But what we're seeing here in Arkansas right now, we don't have time to take a break. We just passed a stand your ground law. We just passed an anti abortion law that is unconstitutional. Our state has become completely partisan to the point where we have 78 Republican Congress state legislators and 22 Democratic state legislators. And basically, the GOP is just passing whatever they want at this point. So
So do you go there? You're in the Senate. Do you start supporting primaries on the state level?
Oh, I've already started supporting primaries at the state level. We have to build a coalition. We have to organize and mobilize together if we're going to start to get real change here in Arkansas. I really want to see Arkansas flip blue in 22. I think it can happen. It's just going to take a lot of change. And a good example would be filing fees, because right now to run for a state Senate seat, it costs $4,500 for your party filing fee. To run for a state House seat, it costs $3,500, which, if you think of the average household income in Arkansas is $40,000, that's 10% of the average Arkansan's income. A lot of people can't afford to enter a race like that. So that's why we ended up with 66 Republicans running unopposed last year. What we need to do is we need to drop our filing fees, find candidates in every single county, every single district, make sure that we do not have 66 Republicans running unopposed. Make sure these Republicans, if they are going to win their seats, they actually have to get a vote. Because we have Republicans sitting in our state legislature right now who've never received a vote. They're serving like 2-3 terms and they've never had an opponent. They've run unopposed every single year. And these are different things that we need to change, and it's going to take just massive mobilization to do it.
Now I want to ask you another thing about regarding endorsements. Does let's say you're in the Senate, you won your race or whatever, and the presidential primary is coming up again.
Mm-hmm.
How do you decide who to endorse during the primary?
Whoever supports progressive policies. I'm really a policy over party kind of person. Honestly, if none of the Democrats supported Medicare for all and Medicare for all still wasn't on the table, and there was a Republican who came in supporting Medicare for all, I'd support the Republican. And if it was an independent or a libertarian, it doesn't matter what their party is. It's completely their policy and ideology for me.
let's say the nominee of the Democratic primary does not support Medicare for all, they don't get your endorsement.
No, I would focus on other races because a lot of people forget how important down ballot races are, which we're seeing, especially with what happened in Georgia and how we were actually able to start getting, the majority in the Senate. I would focus on the down ballot races and try to help out the best I can there.
Would you consider endorsing a third party candidate who did support Medicare for all in that case?
Absolutely, yeah.
Now, out of all the endorsements, which endorsements do you think you want the most?
Which one do I personally want the most, or which one do I think would help my campaign the most? Um,
Let's personal.
Bernie Sanders. I would just, oh man, I couldn't imagine the feeling that I would have if I got an endorsement from Bernie Sanders or AOC. Um, one of these big game changers who has made such a dramatic impact on helping wake up people to the corruption in our government and to get them motivated to start running for office. That would be just amazing. And I think that an endorsement from someone like Bill Clinton would really hold a lot of weight down here in Arkansas. So I would say that would be probably the most important endorsement I could get would be from President Bill Clinton if that ever was possible.
Although, don't forget, Hillary doesn't like Bernie, so Bernie endorses you. She might say to her husband, don't endorse that guy.
Yeah, I'll let them keep their family politics to themselves, and I'll just try to do the best I can to help Arkansans here in Arkansas.
I forgot, Clinton was the governor of Arkansas, right?
Yeah, and he did an amazing job. I mean, people down here love him, Republicans, Democrats alike. He did a lot of good things for our state.
Yeah. So, let's see here. We've already talked about so much.
Yeah, I've got a lot to talk about. Oh man.
um, so what are your thoughts on the fact they want to decrease in unemployment insurance to $300 per month?
Think it's a terrible mistake. I think that there are still a lot of people out there suffering from the pandemic, and $300 a month or $300 a week unemployment insurance just isn't going to help. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's not going to help enough in many of the cities and urban areas that are still suffering from really high unemployment numbers. I think honestly, it needs to be closer to the $600 a week, and or maybe at the very least, kind of weigh it on you know the average cost of living in the different areas or something like that. But I mean, $300 a week is going to be great in somewhere here like Arkansas, living in a rural city or a rural town rather, but somewhere in the Bay Area or New York or Florida or Georgia or any metropolitan area, it's just not going to be enough. And people have been losing their homes, they've been losing their cars, everything. And that's just not okay when you're dealing with a worldwide pandemic.
Now, here's another question. You're not gonna. You actually said before when you're running as independent, I believe it was you who said you wanted to caucus with the Democrats and the Republicans.
Yeah. And I still would love to do that. I mean, there's really not a whole lot that's going to change about who I am or what I believe because I'm running as a Democrat and not an independent. I still want to do the same thing. I want to bridge the gap. I want to mediate solutions between the two parties. And the only way we can accomplish that is by caucusing with, say, the Democrats and then relaying the Democrats' concerns with Republicans, listening to their concerns and relaying them back and forth across the aisle. Just because I have a D in front of my name, I don't think that that's going to change the way that I want to help bring change to the way that our government is working.
Here's a question that's gonna be very important. Will you accept a debate with a now this is where will you accept the debate with someone who's not a Republican while you're running for office? If someone, let's
Yeah.
say the Libertarian, calls you and says, "Will you debate me?"
Yeah, I think debates are really good for campaigns because what a debate is going to do is it's going to really push you with hard questions. And whether you answer a hard question in a positive way or a negative way makes a big impact on your campaign. So I don't think there's ever a time when it's not a good idea to debate. I would debate a Democrat, I would debate a Libertarian, a Green Party member, an Independent, or a Republican. It doesn't matter to me their party affiliation. I just want to get down to the bones of what do you support and why, and I want you to ask me what do I support and why so that I can help amplify that message out to more people.
So you're not going to ignore. A lot of Democrats will run for office. They're like, it's only me and the Republican. We're going to ignore everybody else.
And I mean, they do have a political strategy for that because historically, it's really not a good idea for a Republican and a third party or a Democrat and a third party to debate without the Republican and the Democrat there together because all it's going to do is get more votes for the one party that's not there. It's just there's nothing to be gained from it, which is why I understand why they do it. But personally, again, I'm an open book and I'm not a politician, and I may not do everything to the best political strategy, but I'll still do what I believe is right every time.
So it's on principle that you would agree to debate them.
Yes.
Now, are there any of them who are going to be running, or you don't have any idea at this early stage?
No one is announced at this point.
So it could literally just be you and the Republican.
There's probably a pretty good chance of that happening because there are going to be so many important seats up here in Arkansas in 2022. We have our governor race coming up, a lieutenant governor, a secretary of state, attorney general. We have, and then of course, all of our state legislative seats and half of our state senate seats. So we need like 200 candidates to come forward and run for different positions. And I think for a Democrat even to announce against me right now in a primary, I think would be just out of it wouldn't be very tactful. It would be um, just not a very good idea. I think what we should do is we need to make sure we have candidates for every position. That way, we don't have any Republicans running unopposed because we have a lot of very dangerous GOP candidates out there right now, such as Leslie Rutledge, Sarah Huckabee Sanders, Jason Rappert. There's just so much harm that these people can do to our state over the next decade if we allow them to continue their control over it.
So the Democratic Party might say, you're right about that, except that you can't be the candidate because you support Medicare for all.
And you know what? If they want to do that, by all means, let them primary me. I've already got the money for the filing fee, cash on hand, so I will pay their filing fee. And if a Democrat runs against me, I mean, let them. I honestly, I kind of hope they do because, like I said, we're going to debate. We're going to get our ideas and our values down to the core out there, and we're going to be able to amplify our message that much more. And all I can say, if you're a Democrat planning on running against me, I hope you support things like Medicare for all and different policies that are going to help our Kansans. Because if you don't, then we're gonna I'm going to try to do my best to educate the people of Arkansas why these policies are good and why we need to support and pass them.
And if Schumer handpicks the candidate who runs against you, you might get someone like who ran against Mitch McConnell.
Again, we'll just have to wait and see. I think that being a conservative Republican most of my life to an independent to a now new Democrat, I think that really gives me a good shot to actually get a lot of Republican and third party votes here in Arkansas. People who would much rather vote for, say, an outsider like me than they would want to vote for a Democrat. Because a lot of people are again tired of Senator John Bozeman, and a lot of them may not necessarily want to vote for a Democrat or like an establishment Democrat, but an outsider Democrat. I think that they're more open to at least listening to what I have to say.
Well, you're definitely right about that. If you noticed, what's it, Andrew Yang appeared as as an outsider during the Democratic primary. And believe it or not, about 50% of his supporters were Republicans.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, it just goes to show that our parties are really broken right now. It doesn't matter if you're a Republican or a Democrat. We're facing a lot of the same problems. We're facing low wages, high taxes, and a crumbling infrastructure. And we all face these problems together. So as we start to come together to address and to tackle these problems, we're going to have to start voting in a less partisan way.
Definitely. Now, how often do you do your streams where you talk to your, I guess, your possibly future constituents?
Yeah, I do a weekly live stream every single Saturday night at 6 p.m. with my schedule permitting. I don't think I've scheduled anything for any Saturday this month. So yeah, just every Saturday night at 6 p.m. Central, and then I stream them on Twitch, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. So and Periscope, you can find any of those there, and then I will end up uploading all of my different interviews and live streams to my website as well for people to see.
So, if you lose the election, do you continue your streams? That's my next question.
Um, I haven't really thought about it, but I would say time permitting, I would. At least that way I can kind of keep different people who had supported me in the past uh, up to date with what's going on with our state legislators, different local bills being passed and things like that. But I probably wouldn't be doing it every single Saturday night.
Definitely. Now, do you have the same supporters from last time? Like, I remember you said your campaign had a lot of volunteers last time. Did any of them come with you for this one?
Yeah, pretty much everybody. I think there's two people that are kind of just MIA. They haven't said that they're gone, but I know that they, after the COVID started to calm down a little bit, they started working full time again and they've been busy. And like I said, again, it is really early in a campaign season, but I think my supporters are pretty much all the same. I haven't lost many followers. Um, I still have different people watch my live streams and ask me questions, and my leadership team is pretty much the same still.
How is this the first interview you've done for this campaign?
No, I've actually, I think I've done like maybe two or three other interviews already within the last couple weeks. But I did take a break after the Georgia until after the Georgia special elections because people were kind of really tired of politics and they needed a break. So I've done about three, I think now.
What places have you gone? Have you been on CNN yet or MSNBC?
No, I haven't been on any major media broadcasting yet. I haven't really requested to, just because it's still a little bit early. But I guess it's something that I can start getting my press secretary in contact with these different individuals with now.
Yeah. Are you open to going on pretty much any show? Like, for example, if I don't know, Ben Shapiro says, "Can I have Dan Whitfield on?" Do you say yes or do you say no? I'm not talking to that guy.
Yeah, I'll talk to anybody. I'll talk to literally anybody. If they want to ask me questions to get to know what I stand for and who I am, then I will give them the opportunity to do that.
So it doesn't matter right wing show, left wing show, moderate show, cable.
No, I welcome hard questions. I want people, especially of different mentalities and different mindsets, to ask me questions because being a Democrat here in such a conservative state, I need to be able to answer these questions for my constituents. And I've already answered so many of them for different people. I don't think there is a bad interview. I just think that there is a bad idea not to do interviews.
Definitely, yeah. Have you considered? I'm not sure if they've ever done it for Senate, but have you considered the Justice Democrats at all? Or
I reached out to Justice Democrats, I think or like maybe 2 or 3 years ago.
well, you need to be nominated for that.
But you need to be nominated for it. And at the time, they weren't going to endorse me because I was an independent running against a Democrat because Josh Mahoney had not dropped out of the race yet. So, no, if my supporters nominated me for Justice Democrats and they reached out, then I would definitely entertain them and talk to them.
Yeah. You considered working? Have you considered DSA or have you reached out to DSA?
So the Democratic Socialists of America are some of the most friendly people here in Arkansas. I love talking with them. I joined just one of the central DSA meetings a week or so ago, and just didn't really take over their meeting or anything. Just kind of introduced myself and talked a little bit. I went to one of their meetings a little while ago. They do a lot of really good things here in Arkansas, and honestly, a lot of the renters' rights issues that we're facing here in Arkansas were brought to my attention by the DSA. So they're the ones going out there door to door, talking to people about how they've been treated as tenants, taking pictures of mold and rats and roaches and things like that, and trying to build a case to help Arkansans renters. So I really hope to continue to be able to talk with them and work with them in the future.
Have you spoken to unions in the state of Arkansas?
The only union that I spoke to was the firefighters union, and I think it went really well. I mean, they're the real heroes of our state. They work really hard. A lot of actually, most people don't know, but the majority of our firefighters here in our state are actually volunteers and don't get a lot of the benefits that full-time firefighters get. But yeah, I've spoken with the firefighters union, and that's pretty much the only one at this point because I just haven't got to my union list yet.
So you plan to speak to the unions in the state of Arkansas?
Oh, absolutely. I'm 100% pro union. I think that Americans should have the same federal protections for unions as we used to. But unfortunately, we've had
Or
union busters like Reagan come in and just destroy um, the safety net that so many workers used to enjoy.
so do you support repealing the Taft-Hartley Act?
I do.
Okay.
I like basically we used to have so much union protection when the unions were at their strongest in America. That's when we started to see things like the weekend, like overtime, minimum wage, different things like that. Without unions, we never would have seen these amazing benefits that we take for granted a lot of the
Or
time
the
as
seven-day work
workers
week.
today. Yes, a 7 day work
Every-
week.
In
um
some places do, but
yeah. So I think it's just very important. I don't think everyone should be forced to work for a union, but everybody should have the opportunity, if you're working for a large business, to join a union or not, or at least to have a vote. And a lot of
Walmart
times,
won't like that.
Walmart won't like that, but Walmart doesn't like a lot of things. Um, Walmart probably isn't going to like me very much, honestly, because
Nobody in
unfortunately,
Walmart.
yeah, and we're actually the home of Walmart corporate headquarters. I mean, the corporate headquarters is like 10 minutes away from my house. But I just don't like the way that Walmart, they're really bad at having a worker work for them for so long and then they just let them go to replace them with somebody new so that they can pay the new person less.
In
It,
2007 or 9, they had a food drive for their workers for Thanksgiving.
Yes, it's quite terrible, and I believe they pay like between 1 to 2% in taxes. I think it was like 1.4%. So they pay actually, I think like around $13 billion in taxes. The last time I did research on them, and then at the same time, their employees working full time were qualifying for government assistance, costing taxpayers $6.5 trillion in taxes. So what we really need to do is need to make sure they're paying their employees a livable wage and that they're not evading taxation, that they're paying their taxes, just their fair share. I'm not saying do something crazy like 36%, but I think that corporations should be paying at least 20 to 25%.
And they shouldn't be allowed to hide. Do you think there should be penalties if they don't pay those taxes?
Yeah,
Because they'll
absolutely.
hide their money or they'll do this. And people say, well, we can't raise taxes because then they'll hide their money.
Well, my wife is a an accountant, so she is really able to help educate me on taxes and different things that companies do to avoid them. And we do need to close these legal loopholes that they use for tax evasion. But we also need to make sure that we are, holding them accountable when they don't pay their taxes. Because right now, if they don't pay their taxes, and then what, they get a big fine, or it just goes forever. But what we need to do is we need to make sure if a corporation does not pay their taxes, they need to shut their business down until they do.
So, for example, Walmart doesn't pay their taxes, they're shut down until they do. And then consumers may not like that, they'll lose money.
But hey, watch the mom and pop stores pop up real fast and get back to the type of America that actually made America great in the first place. But I mean, when it comes down to losing billions of or trillions of dollars, these corporations, they will pay their taxes because they're not going to risk getting shut down.
Chuck Schumer would disagree with you and some of the other Democrats in the Senate, right?
Yeah, they're also. When was the last time one of these guys had a minimum wage or an average wage job, or when was the last time they were part of the middle class? They just don't understand what it's like to be a working class American in 2021. They just understand what it's like to be worth millions of dollars and have cushy government health care. And I mean, when was the last time a lot of the people in the working class took a vacation? Like, how many people that work full time can afford to take a vacation? When we have our representatives and legislators who are taking vacations like a quarter of the year.
Mhm.
They're so out of touch they have no idea.
I think I don't want to get wrong with it. I think Cenk Uygur from TYT said put the Senate on minimum wage and see how fast they embrace that.
Yeah, actually I made a post recently about it, saying, you know what, why don't I challenge our legislators to live on 7.25 an hour. Empty their fridges out first. No food in the fridge. 7.25 an hour. 40 hours a week, full time. You know what? Let's be nice. We'll give them up to 10 hours overtime, so 50 hours a week max, and take away their credit cards, give them a car note, give them a rent payment, give them a mortgage, give them utilities, phone bill, take away all of their different advantages that they have, and let's see how long they last. I mean, I did it for years, and if I can do it, they can, but wait until they see the difference of lifestyle. And then
Nancy Pelosi won't have her fancy ice cream though.
no more $30 ice cream out of $12,000 fridge. Yeah, probably not. But hey, Bluebell's pretty good and it's fairly cheap. Walmart's got gallon tubs, $5. Um, they'll have to start eating like the rest of the working class. And you know what? We can even have them do that for like 2 months and then have them do $15 an hour for 2 months and see the difference that it makes on the quality of their lives. And then you know what? For 2 months after that, give them all $30 an hour and let them see the quality of life difference and watch how fast we would have a $30 an hour minimum wage.
The corporatists in Congress will disagree with you on this.
That's okay. I welcome their disagreements. I'd love to debate with them on the floor one of these days about their disagreements as well.
Now, if you recall, um, some of them don't even remember what poor people are. If you saw that interview with Nancy Pelosi in the fridge, they asked her what she's going to do for poor people, and she said, "Well, we have loans for small businesses."
Yeah, I mean, like I said, they're so out of touch. We even have congressmen who think that middle class is like 100, or let's see, they said middle class is what, $40,000 a year, but it's really not. I mean, our middle class really is like 120,000 dollars a year. Uh,
Let's see how out of touch you are. Let's see if you're out of touch or not. How much is a gallon of milk?
a gallon of milk? Oh man.
Average price of a gallon of milk.
Darn. See, I'm a little out of touch because we shop at Sam's Club and we buy 3 half gallons at a time. Um, so
How
let's
much?
see. I mean, normally a gallon of milk like $2.60.
Yeah. How much do you think a dozen eggs?
Oh man, I buy them by the 5 dozen. I like eggs, but 5 dozen eggs. Let's see. Before the pandemic, it was like I want to say like $4 or $4.90 or something like that for 5 dozen eggs. But now it's like $8. It's a little bit more expensive now.
Oh, yeah. How about this? How much is a package of water bottles? Like 24 packs.
Well, we get Ozarka water because there's no fluoride in it, and I think a case of water it's like 3.97 or something like that
For how many?
for 24, I believe.
Yeah, that's very, yeah. See, if you ask Nancy Pelosi, she would have no idea.
She'd be like, "What kind of water? What is it that rich people
Sparkling
drink?"
fancy?
Yeah, what is it that rich people drink? Is it like here? Nope. Now I'm gonna Google it. All right, it is Essentia water. That's what the Kardashians drink is Essentia water. Um, Aqua di Cristallo Tributo a Madugalali, which is $60,000 per 750 milliliters. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so she'll be like, well, about 50 grand.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. It's like design.
I
Fiji water. That's what I was thinking of.
yeah. I'm assuming your opponent, John Bozeman, won't know the average price of household items.
I have no idea.
I'm sure he's pretty rich.
Um, he is. Let's see. Let's see here. Senator John Bozeman's net worth. Open secrets. Nope, that's not going to be. Here's how rich every U.S. senator is. All right. Oh my gosh, this one's going to not work as well because it's doing it by wealth. But oh, here we go, Senator John Bozeman. See, he's only worth 600,000, so he's not like super crazy millionaire rich like Nancy Pelosi.
Very possible, yeah, but definitely. Will you be willing to, in a debate with John Bozeman, will you be willing to figure out who his donors are and what favors he's done for them and call that out?
Absolutely, I'll do that to every single politician that I come across. Whether they're a Democrat or Republican, if I see a politician taking money from a special interest and then voting in a way that benefits that special interest while hurting their constituents, I will call it out every time.
So, will you call out Joe Manchin for his reasons for not raising the minimum wage?
Yeah, I've already called out those 8 Democrats, and I don't know why they listed Senator Angus King as a Democrat. I don't know if he switched parties.
He's an independent.
Yeah, he's an independent.
Democrats backed him because his opponent was a progressive.
Yeah, so that makes sense. But yeah, no, all these different 8 Democrats or the independent included who voted against it, there's just no excuses at this point. They can speak GOP rhetoric all they want, but Democrats shouldn't be doing that. Democrats should be doing what's right for their constituents, not what's right for their donors.
Definitely. Well, 9 o'clock. Thanks for coming on today. If you can stay for a minute after I want to ask you a question. And thanks everybody for tuning in to KRTD Chat. I'm sure we'll see you again. Thanks for coming on, Dan.
Oh, thank you. And I've still got you here on my live stream. Let's see. But let me go through these questions real quick. And we do need a Costco Sonia in Arkansas. That would be awesome. Oh, Steelworker, Mr. Rick Gray. Thank you for joining us. And Annie, as always, I hope you're still doing well.
How many people you got watching?
Oh, not too many right now. I see 2 on Facebook, 3 on let's see here. Actually, let me go to Twitter.
Oh, what? Yeah. Hang on, we're still live. Leonard, stop. Okay.
Oh, it's okay. I've just got your screen on mine.
Okay. Let me see. No, it's just delayed on our end.
Oh, for sure. Click here.
We didn't get too many viewers. We got like 2 viewers, but our views have been going down for whatever reason.
Also, yeah, it's late. Yeah. But hey, man, I mean, thank you again for this opportunity. I know you've got some really big interviews in the past, and I appreciate you giving, me some time this evening.
Of course, I mean, I think you're the first person that's a major party running for U.S. Senate that we've had on. So.
Well, you did. Did you do Howie Hawkins last year?
I did Howie Hawkins, Joe Jorgensen, and pretty much every other third-party candidate, except for 3 of them who rejected to come on.
Oh, man. Well, anytime you're available or you would like me to be available, just let me know. I'm always down to answer questions, especially as these next couple of years progress, because, oh my gosh, it's actually only about 1.5 years now until the election. But as time progresses and we have different social issues coming up, I'd always be happy to come on and talk about them.
We could do more panels, probably. We're probably going to do a racial justice panel, an economic justice panel.
Yeah, man, panels are awesome. I learned so much in the last panel. I'm down anytime. Just let me know.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, my hair is terrible long. It's like peeking up on the sides now. All right, but I'm gonna let you all go for the evening. Good, Annie. Good to hear. I actually, I spoke with your mom not long ago, and we are going to go up there once we all get vaccinated and go check out the ranch. Oh, I'm so excited. Hopefully, sometime this summer. But let me go ahead, close YouTube down, get all these different ones closed up. And so awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us. This was with KRTD, right? KRTD.
KRTD, yeah.
And what was your actual media company name? It used to be called something else, didn't you?
It used to be called Kerberos Roundtable Discussions.
There we
That
go.
got a little bit too long. So that was our first podcast. So we actually named our entire company the abbreviation of our first podcast.
Oh, that makes sense. Awesome. Well, man, thank you so much for giving me a call and this opportunity again. I do appreciate it. But let me go ahead and end my stream. Thank you guys so much for joining us tonight. You guys have a wonderful evening, and I will catch you all. Oh my gosh, it's already Friday. So